It's one of the craziest propositions of all time.
And when you understand the psychological warfare, I did say to you is that, Jake, what's going to happen? I'm going to see a time when I'm going to take your soul and you're either going to give up or you're going to get knocked out. And unless you have that instinct...
Anthony Joshua's knockout of Jake Paul triggered an avalanche of reactions across boxing, MMA, and combat sports media, with most voices agreeing the result was never in doubt. Joe Rogan reacted with open laughter alongside Anthony Joshua himself, framing the fight as one of the clearest mismatches modern boxing has seen. Rogan emphasized that Jake Paul's usual opponents have been retired fighters or MMA athletes past their competitive primes, while Joshua is a two-time heavyweight world champion and Olympic gold medalist operating at a completely different physical and technical level.
Well, realistically, it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the...
Anthony Joshua's own post-fight reaction carried a colder edge. He stated that the knockout actually saved Jake Paul, explaining that if the fight had gone longer, the damage would have been far worse both physically and mentally. Joshua framed boxing as a psychological war as much as a physical one, saying there comes a moment when a fighter's will is broken, when their spirit is taken, and from that point the fight is effectively over.
Fighting's not just physical, it's psychological. And when you understand the psychological warfare, I did say to you is that, Jake, what's going to happen? I'm going to see a time when I'm going to take your soul and you're either going to give up or you're going to get knocked out. And unless you have that instinct...
Alexander Usyk, his team, it came a bit of a shock to the boxing world. How did that come about, and how did you feel that you guys meshed?
So I spoke to Sergey, who works with Usyk, and he invited me down to their training camp. Ultimately, just to do some rounds. There was nothing more to it, but our schedules didn't align at the time. And I then spoke to Tom Hall, who's a good friend of mine, and he said, look, let's try and find some time in your schedule. Put boxing first and go out there. They're a very good team. You want to win, they're winners. If you want to win, surround yourself with winners. Spoke to Eddie, spoke to family, everyone said it's a good idea. I was initially going to go out there for 2 weeks. That turned into 3 months. That turned into a fight, and long may it continue. It's been a really good experience, a really good eye-opener, and I think I can definitely do more. I done well at becoming 2-time heavyweight champion of the world, but I think if I would have known what it takes, I think I would have been undisputed. To the young fighters coming up, you have to work harder. If you really want to win and you really want to get to the top of boxing like Usyk has, you have to work harder. And that's what I've learned with these guys is hard work doesn't lie.
Simon Jordan reacted with frustration and concern, arguing that the event damaged boxing's credibility. He questioned what the fight actually achieved beyond massively increasing Joshua's bank balance. Jordan said that immediately after the bout, attention shifted to whether Joshua might fight Tyson Fury, and his reaction was blunt. After witnessing a spectacle like this, the conversation felt hollow. Simon Jordan added that reputationally, it was vital Joshua secured a knockout rather than allowing the fight to go to the judges. He said a points decision would have been disastrous for Joshua's standing, even in such a mismatch, while acknowledging that Joshua controlled the fight and could have ended it earlier.
History, because straight after the fight, I heard the question being posed to Joshua, will he now fight Fury? And then my first thought was, after what I've seen, who cares? After that, who cares if Joshua fights Fury? I like Anthony Joshua immensely, Spencer. Any exchanges I've had with him, I think he comes across terrifically well. But I fail to see where it's taken us, where it's taken him, other than hugely increasing his bank balance. You know, I really fail to see what this has done.
Well, it's done nothing, but he was going to fight in November, like I said, and he's just gone in there against Jake Paul. What has it done for his legacy? Absolutely zero. But it was, you know, he's earned a lot of money doing that. And he's going to go again, and he's going to fight possibly February, March, and then there's that Tyson Fury fight that's looming that could happen in September, whether Tyson Fury decides to come out of retirement or not come out of retirement. For Anthony Joshua, he's earned a hell of a lot of money. This is prize fighting, and that's what it's all about. And that's what he's done.
Earning more than Joshua. That apart, Spencer, 6 rounds to get Paul out of there. Reputationally, how does it leave AJ?
Well, thankfully it didn't go to points because I think that would have been a disaster for Anthony Joshua. I think that he needed to get the job done inside the distance, and he done it. Look, he could have done it at any given point. I think that he could have cut the ring off whenever he wanted to and got Jake Paul out of there. He took his time on that. He allowed Jake Paul to run around like a rabbit and throw the occasional shot from time to time. And I think he only landed one clean punch, didn't he, Anthony Joshua? And that was the one that broke his jaw in 2 places.
But, I mean, you said, did you not, to us in this very studio the other day, he's got to get him out of there in round 1.
I did.
Otherwise, what are we seeing?
Exactly that. And I think what we saw there was a little bit of entertainment. And that was pretty much it, but not entertainment that many people enjoyed, if I'm honest. I think that people wanted to see a demolition job.
Joe Rogan returned to praising Joshua's physical attributes, focusing on how unusually fast and athletic he is for a heavyweight. Rogan explained that Joshua moves like someone far lighter while carrying nuclear-level power in his right hand.
But this is a giant Olympic gold medalist heavyweight. I mean, Anthony Joshua is fucking
Here's the
terrifying.
thing that nightmares are made of.
And he's got that one punch nuclear power. One punch.
Adam Booth offered a more nuanced reaction, choosing to highlight Jake Paul's improvement rather than the inevitability of his defeat. Booth pointed out that Paul managed to make Anthony Joshua miss on several occasions, something that does not happen accidentally. Adam Booth expressed respect for Jake Paul's courage and discipline. He noted the transformation from a Disney Channel actor to someone willing to stand in the ring with a live, world-class heavyweight. Booth described how Paul stayed composed under pressure, avoided panic, and demonstrated skills designed to protect himself.
Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul sharing the ring. Your takeaways from the 6 rounds that we saw, presuming you watched?
I was impressed with Jake Paul. I thought that, following on from what we're saying, right? A few years ago, he was on Disney as a kid, acting up, and has decided to become a professional fighter. That takes balls, but he's obviously striving to be as good as he can be. You can see that in the way that he moves, the way that he is developed in how he's punching and performing. But to make a 2-time world heavyweight champion that's still live, AJ's still got something about him, to make him miss in such an accomplished manner. All right, so at times he was jumping out and running around, but there were times when he was well in range and still making AJ unable to land a clean, solid shot. He deserves a lot of respect for that. And then the shot that actually finished the fight, that broke his jaw quite badly, didn't put him out. That shot's that shot he threw with serious intention has put a lot of professional heavyweights to sleep. He didn't go to sleep. He actually finished on his knees, didn't he? Laughing and spitting blood out of his mouth. So, like they say, it's a special type of crazy and a special type of brave to do it. But I actually, hats off to him, because he showed that he's developing some accomplished little skills in there to look after himself. The size difference is always going to fatigue him.
I know everyone will come with the idea that, AJ should just go in there 1 round and smash him to bits, and that should be it was a big ring, right? Perhaps he could have cut the ring off a bit better, but would I be right in saying that regardless of skill level, if you forget about that with the 2 for a second, if someone is on the back foot and on their bike and doing what Jake was doing, it's difficult no matter who you are, no matter the kind of separation in skill level.
It's a big ring, and you've either got to run at him and look like a novice yourself, or just take your time and understand.
Teddy Atlas reacted by addressing speculation that the fight was staged or fixed. He firmly rejected that idea, explaining his prediction that the bout would last several rounds was rooted in legitimate boxing factors. Atlas cited Anthony Joshua's 15-month layoff, the psychological effects of being knocked out in his previous fight, and the hesitation that naturally follows such an experience.
Rounds. I wasn't sure if there was going to be a silent agreement. I wasn't sure there was going to be a sparring match agreement that we'll spar for a while. I wasn't sure. I was honest about it. That's why he said it's going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was an understanding that, we'll play a little bit and then we'll get a little more and, whatever. So that was part of it. But there was real parts. Say, that's the fixed part. That's the WWE part. That's where the people, and I'm with you. I get it if you want to think that. Here's why I picked rounds, and this is what I think I saw, and I know that in my mind I saw, was the factors that a lot of people didn't think about. 15 months off. And there was going to be some rust. There was going to be some hesitation. There was going to be some time. He got knocked out by Dubois freaking 15 months ago. There were going to be ghosts and addicts. I don't care who you're fighting. You get in the ring again. It's going to take a minute to exercise those ghosts. The rust. You want to call it rust, whatever. It's going to take 5-6 rounds to get rid of the rust. But It's gonna the doubt, the self-doubt, the being in the ring for the first time with nothing in between after being knocked out. That was gonna be a play. And then the size of the ring, 22 by 20. It's usually 20 to 20 is pretty usually around average. And it's 22 by 20. More room to elude, more room to move around, right? I thought maybe go in there.
Chris Algieri reacted harshly, focusing on what he saw as a fundamental failure in Jake Paul's approach. Algieri stated that while Paul showed courage by stepping into the ring, he did not truly attempt to win the fight at any point. According to Algieri, survival-focused tactics ultimately hurt Paul's standing with boxing fans more than an early knockout would have. Paulie Malignaggi expanded on that criticism with brutal honesty. He explained that Jake Paul does not yet possess the boxing skill required to move constantly while also fighting effectively. Malignaggi said that hit-and-run tactics drain the legs quickly and only delay the inevitable, especially against someone with Joshua's size and patience.
An Ngannou type fight. Yeah, Ngannou, he's got balls. Ngannou's got balls, man. He went out there and he tried to fight, tried to win. Jake Paul didn't try to win at any point during the fight. He was just trying to survive. I think that's actually ultimately going to hurt him with boxing fans.
What do you think, Paulie? I mean, you talked about the in and out kind of style, kind of hits and runs, and you said that A, it runs out your legs. He was exhausted a couple rounds into the fight, and B, it only saved him for so long.
He doesn't have the boxing skills to box on the move anyway. Once I saw the big ring, I knew he was going to run for his life. When you're that much of a novice, which obviously it's not even an insult to him, it's just lack of experience, but when you're that much of a novice, you either know how to run for your life or fight all out. You don't have that in between yet. You haven't developed enough of that in between boxing acumen to really pull that off. And so what ends up happening? You're either going to fight your ass off and you'll last a minute. Chris, you're being generous. Round 2, he would have got knocked out in round 1 if he would have fought. But at least he would have fought. He would have got the respect of the people and more importantly, the boxing community instead of these clowns that follow him and are still defending him. Now what happens is you didn't get any respect as a fighter. You didn't get any respect as a fighter because you didn't try to fight at all. If he would have, I was watching that through 2-3 rounds. I'm thinking to myself, this guy would do this for 8 rounds if he can. If he can do this for 8 rounds, absolutely not fight at all, absolutely not engage a single time in 8 rounds, he will actually do this. And he'll do it shamelessly. And that's the problem. That's the problem. The shamelessness of his approach to the fight. You're gonna be a fighter, then don't make an ass out of the whole sport, out of the whole business, and out of yourself first and foremost. Because in the end, what happens? You got his jaw broke anyway. So what ends up happening? What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to get hurt, you're going to get knocked out? You got hurt and you got knocked out anyway, but you just prolonged the inevitable and you got no respect out of it now because nobody's respecting that kind of performance. Nobody's respecting a performance where you were totally content to steal money